So what I'd like, you have the agenda there, and I am Alice Kelly. What I'd like to do is have the DDOT staff introduce ourselves, and then if we could have introductions all around, so everyone gets an idea of what the area is that you're representing. So I'm Alice Kelly, and I head our policy shop at the District Department of Transportation.
Faye Gaskett with the Policy Department.
What do we call it now?
Office of Policy and Governmental Affairs.
That's it, yes.
And I'm Evian Patterson, the citywide parking manager. Do the operations and manage these things.
Okay, so can we start?
Hi, my name is Rochelle Nigro. I'm the neighborhood commissioner for 6E04.
Hi, I'm Mike Silverstein, ANC 2B06, Golden Triangle, DuPont West.
Nicole Mann, ANC 2B08, North Lemont.
Patrick Kennedy, ANC 2A, Foggy Bottom.
David Bender, ANC 2E, Sheridan, Colorado.
Peter Sacco, I'm a staff member with several of the Ward 2 ANCs.
Skip the rest.
Renee Bowser, ANC 4D02, south side of Missouri to the north side of Gallatin, North Capitol to Bid.
You don't have to stand. That's it. Just, it's been a long day.
Good evening, I'm Commissioner Patricia Williams, 5E02, Rhode Island Avenue Corridor.
I'm Nancy Liquid, ANC 3C09, Cleveland Park.
And I'm
Well, go ahead. You and then
Rhonda Hamilton, 6D06. I represent Southwest across from Nationals Ballpark.
Good evening, I'm Amy Johnson, 2B01, which is DuPont Circle North, bordering on Ward 1.
Okay. Just in time to introduce yourself. We just did a round. Yes, if you want to.
Yeah, we'll give it forward.
We stand up in front.
I don't know what's
No, just to make things worse for latecomers, all the. That's fine. I'm actually going to kind of step up here so people can get. And for what it's worth, Alice Kelly, former ANC commissioner for 3 terms, so, been there, done that, Mount Pleasant. All right. So the way I want to do this tonight, I think that the best way for using everybody's time is to make it clear. What we're doing here is to discuss these proposed regulations. So if you have like a particular, this car is always parking in front of my house, let's leave that for another day. We all have a lot of issues that we deal with each other on, but right now we wanted an opportunity to share with you our proposed regs, which will put some new, possibly put some new responsibilities on ANCs, and so we wanted an opportunity to share with you and get questions, etc. I want to make it really, really clear. These are proposed. So we can't answer the, well, what about so-and-so? Because if we hear from you that so-and-so is really a dumb idea, it's not going to be finalized. So we've come up with, we've been mulling this issue for quite a while, and we have come up with a proposal for how to address it. The key piece in here, if you want to, I'm sorry, can you introduce yourself? And then, unfortunately, all of our handouts are up here, so it's all right.
So much for settling coming in.
No settle coming in.
From 2D.
Okay. Ward 2 is well represented. So to make it clear here, and I know you all know this, but we still get confusion. When there is a notice of proposed rulemaking, it's just an idea. So what we want to hear from everybody is a response. Now, you are welcome to say this is really stupid and it sucks, but that's not really productive. The productive response, of course, as you all know, is to help us develop language that is responsive, that does help. that refines it. Or, you know, if all of this is terrible, then to tell us to go back to the drawing board. But this is what the idea is, to give everyone an opportunity to kind of help us shape a policy that's going to work well. Specifically with this one, there were a bunch of changes that were sort of housekeeping changes that we wanted to make, but the critical piece here is that we have been getting a lot of requests for resident-only parking. We put in resident-only parking in certain areas, I admit it, without clear guidelines, the guidance we got from the residents and the agencies. But we didn't have clear guidelines. And what we realized after doing this in a number of areas on a number of blocks is that we were then hearing from folks that they couldn't get to their dentist office because we had cut in half the number of available spaces for people who were not residents of whatever that code, zone was. Businesses were complaining, churches were complaining, and it wasn't really, in a lot of cases, addressing the needs that the residents thought it would address. We also found there was a major spillover effect. So if this block got resident only, it was just pushing additional cars into the next block, and then they were coming in and asking for resident only. So most of it fell in Evian's shop. And I don't know, a couple of years ago, we actually put a stop to doing resident only, just so we could step back, kind of analyze the impact in those areas. And I know a number of you are here from areas that we have been doing kind of a microscopic study of, if you will, to kind of see who's parking, what's happening, what's the turnover, that sort of stuff. Anyway, so what we have published, is our proposed rule to deal, I mean, there are other things, as I said, but that's kind of the critical piece for you all. And the proposal is modeled after what my council member in Ward 1 passed a couple of years ago, which was an enhanced parking protections for residents in Ward 1. Under this proposal, the AMCs had the opportunity to opt out of the program. And out of 4, 3 AMCs decided to try it, to go in it, and 1 did not. 1 opted out. Mine, of course. Opted out of the program. So where I live in Ward 1 does not have resident only. But the other parts of Ward 1 do have resident only. And what we realized, I mean, we were doing a lot of work of fancy formulas and trying to, you know, stuff that none of us could actually understand once we wrote it on paper. But we have some people that are way too smart for their own good, and they come up with all sorts of ways to come up to determine how you would qualify. And then we sort of stepped back and thought, you know, it's working in Ward 1. Doing it on an AMC-wide basis, we actually have not gotten complaints from Ward 1. Not even my AMC, which is a chronic complainer. But I think that's why we sort of decided, let's throw this out here and see if that gets any kind of traction. It gives an opportunity for a whole community to come together and to talk about, as opposed to basically pitting block against block. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Faye, who is going to go through, and we will build in lots of time, so, you know, for questions, comments, but Faye will go through a more detailed.
All right, well, thank you, Alice. So as Alice mentioned, the main difference between existing regulations and the proposed regulations are the processes we introduced, proposed processes for designation of resident only. There are other changes in the proposed rulemaking, but they're mostly administrative changes. We issued an FAQ document that's online. If you Google DDOT RPP, it takes the first option that comes up is our RPP webpage. If you click on that, scroll towards the bottom of the page, the first document that you see is the FAQ document. So you can go ahead and read the FAQ document. It clearly explains what the difference between the proposed rulemaking and the existing regulations are. So there are 2 major differences. Prior to the proposed rulemaking, if you wanted to, it's modification of the days and hours of RPP. So right now, if let's say the hours of your RPP on your block is until, let's say, 8:30 p.m., you feel like it should be extended until 10 p.m. Right now, residents, all they need to do is let DDOT know, and then we'll, with the petition, and we don't do a survey, we just extend the hours. The new proposal, though, what it does, it requires DDOT to do a survey to find out if the extended hours would actually help. So we would do a survey in that block during the requested hours. So if you requested the block, the RPP restrictions to be extended until 10:30 p.m., we do a survey at 10 p.m. to see if it meets certain criteria. And the criteria that we're looking for is the exact criteria for RPP designation. Basically, 75% occupancy in the block and 10% of the parked vehicles should be from the outside of that RPP zone. This is not major. Basically, if the block meets the criteria for extension of the hours, we'll extend the hours. But the major change, as Alice said, is designation of resident only.
Designation of?
Resident only parking.
Can you explain what the first part is?
So with the resident only parking, the one thing that I wanted to mention is that.
Can you explain, you said now, for example, if it's at till 8:30, the way it is currently, if the people on the block want to extend it to 10:30, you just would, if they put in a petition, you would just, with the 75%, you just extend it. But the proposal is to.
Well, even without the 75%, if you give us a petition, we would just extend it right now.
Okay.
But there should be criteria by which we could basically evaluate.
And so what I'm trying to figure out, what is that criteria?
That 75% of the parked vehicles, 75% of the spaces in that block be parked by vehicles. So 75% occupancy on the block. Let's say your block has 10 spaces on it, 7 spaces should be occupied. So out of that 7 cars that are parked, 10% of that, whatever that 10% of 7 is, let's say 1 car, more than 1 car should be from outside of that.
In order to qualify.
In order to qualify for the extension.
Sorry, I just want to clarify. Right now, we do accept petitions for extended RPP. It has been a useful tool. We don't apply the 70-10, but we do do evaluation of the impacts for parking around the block. So the look is its proximity to traffic generators, its nighttime activity, things like that, and we take that into account. But this right here is applying the criteria that we use for normal RPP to that extended period of time as well.
What is the criteria for normal RPP?
That's 75-10. The
70-10,
same.
sorry.
70-10.
70-10. So what she explained, the occupancy test.
Oh, for any time during the day.
Go ahead.
If your neighborhood has more protective hours already, should we have any concern that this document will give DDOT an excuse to roll it back? So like we have 7 a.m. to midnight on a couple streets.
No. Unless you want to roll it back to 10. Yeah. And again, as Alex said, these are all.
Pressure from DDOT to standardize?
Well, again, this is just proposed. This is a proposed rulemaking. If we get comments from residents about standardizing it, then we can. But for right now, as the rulemaking says, no. Everything is based on resident requests.
Gotcha.
But do you have blocks, this is just a question, do you have blocks that are all both sides resident only?
No, we don't. Maybe a couple.
There's one infamous block, but we won't. We're going to adjust that.
Actually,
I said a couple.
as you say, standard. There is one, what do you call it, like a cul-de-sac,
Cul-de-sac.
immediately adjacent to a very, very wonderful public park that is right on the border with Maryland, and we did put that as resident only because they have no off-street parking for the residents, and literally, so we have the exceptions.
Right, but normally
But
you don't
no,
have
no,
blocks
no.
that are all both
Resident.
sides resident.
Right,
It's usually
right.
just one side resident only, and then the other side, like 2 hours or something.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so for the resident only, as Alice said again, these are all proposed rules. So we're seeking comments from residents. Please help us make this better, help us improve the rulemaking. So for right now, what's in the rulemaking is that we require a petition accompanied by ANC resolution So what we need is that we need the ANC, the block to send us a petition, to basically send a petition to the ANC. We need the ANC resolution for the entire ANC. And again, as Alice said, what we experienced was spillover impacts to the next block, to the block over, to the block over. And therefore we said, so why not do it for the entire ANC so that everyone gets it, everyone's involved. We require ANC resolution so that can be discussed during ANC meeting. All we need is 5 blocks, so 5 blocks that are close to traffic generators, hospitals, retail establishments, any recreational center, any land use that attracts more than, I think the rulemaking says right now 500 visitors. It could be a group of them, not like, let's say it could be different restaurants that total, they attract a lot of people. So we require a resolution from the ANC, and then we need the ANC to send us 5 blocks. Within the entire ANC, all we need is a minimum of 5 blocks so that we can survey those blocks to see if they meet the criteria.
Do they have to be contiguous?
No. And let me finish this and then I can answer any questions. So we need a petition and then ANC resolution and then 5 blocks. Once we get the resolution, the petition, and the block faces that you'd like us to survey, then we go ahead and do the survey. When we do the survey, if 50% of the cars that are parked in those blocks are from outside of the ANC, then you get the resident-only designation. So let's say 5 blocks, each block has 10 spaces. We're going to survey every single block. If more than 5 cars, 5 or more, are registered outside of the ANC, the address they're registered to is outside of the ANC, then you meet the criteria. That means a lot of people from outside of the ANC come and park in the streets of those specific blocks. So if it meets those criteria, then we will designate the entire ANC, 50%, so one side of the block, in the entire ANC as resident only.
In the entire ANC. So even if you only want 5 blocks, maybe you want 2 SMDs to have this, the entire ANC has to then.
Right. So as Alice
Again, that's a comment to make.
Yeah.
We are proposing it be an entire ANC.
So you're saying that would.
That is our proposal. So that's the sort of feedback that AMCs need to give us. We are trying to get away from the block by block. And what it will happen if you give this, then those folks on the outer edge are going to say, whoa.
Of course, yeah.
So that's the reason we did it. It's spillover, but as Alice said, we look forward. We need comments from residents. You live there every single day. You know how it works. I know I live in Columbia Heights. The days that I have to drive around the block for hours to find parking. So you guys live there. You know how it works. We're looking to you guys for comments. So this is what we propose right now. It doesn't have to be the final. It's not the final.
So how will you determine that people are from outside of the ANC?
By the,
Now,
there's
wait a
a-
minute, the
ANC,
RPP rules still.
Well, RPP rules are with the ward,
Exactly.
Right.
and the ward doesn't, my RPP sticker doesn't say that I'm in DuPont, or that I'm in Foggy Bottom, or that I'm in Georgetown. How do you?
We are not, we're not making that change. So right now, and that's one of the things in the areas where we've gone and done the in-depth survey, what we've realized is most of the people who are parking up the streets are in fact legally your neighbors because they're in the same ward, in the same zone.
But I'm trying to figure out, you're saying that 50% of the cars have to be outside the ANC.
No, it's outside
Out of the
the zone.
RPP zone. Sorry.
Out of the zone.
Out of the
So, sorry,
RPP zone.
Out
Sorry.
of the ward,
Yeah,
so.
Oh, the ward.
Right,
it's
the ward,
okay.
sorry.
Not the
Out of the ward.
Okay.
The
That was a
zone,
miss,
okay.
that's
Right,
sorry.
So you have
Out
some
of the ward, sorry to confuse
Georgetown,
you.
Yeah.
who
That's
park
exactly
down in
right.
DuPont and
Yeah.
looking for free parking.
But the one thing that I'd like to mention is that even in resident-only zones, let's say in Ward 1, anyone who has a Ward 1 sticker can park in a resident-only zone, regardless of their ANC. So, so you keep that in mind, because resident-only may not be the solution to the problem. If you know you have a big Ward 2, a lot of people from all over the place in Ward 2 may park in a block face that has resident-only designation, but you may be from Georgetown, you may be from DuPont, you may be from Colorado, but you can still park in resident-only spaces.
So let me see if I understand that clear, right? So you're saying that only 50% of the A and C area could have resident-only parking?
Right.
Okay, so here's my problem. Before this all got on the big pause, the Howard Theater moved into RA or right above RA and C. And then all these residential-only signs came up. This is now years ago. This is probably 5 years ago, right? And then I came with my request, and it was paused. So, I feel like my area, my single member district would get screwed, because what if, with that whole Howard Theater area, that's the 50% already?
No,
Is that what-
it's
no,
half
no,
the street.
That's
No, no, but not-
misunderstanding. It's not half of the parking in the entire ANC.
Okay.
It is only half of every block. So you're ANC.
in the ANC.
So
So
my
every
single
block
member
is in
district
the
could,
ANC.
technically, I have 7 blocks in my single member district. I can request all 7 blocks have.
one side of the block.
Correct,
The
that's all I
ANC,
want.
one side.
Right.
of the
What?
block, yeah.
So if these are to the two sides of the blocks,
Yep, yep.
this would
That I
get
got.
resident-only.
But it doesn't matter that we have 5 blocks on
No.
north
No,
part of
does
the
not
line.
That has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Does not.
But it's the ANC, not single member district. If the, you know, wishes of everybody who's reviewing these comments or submitting comments is to have it made smaller, our proposal is to have it done by an ANC because that is what was
So
done.
you're saying, my NC would say, we do a petition with all my residents,
Resolution.
A resolution.
and then where's the petition falling? I guess I'm confused. There is no
The
petition.
petition goes to the ANC.
With all my
Basically,
residents?
yeah, residents.
If your residents want, they'll bring it to you.
Okay.
Right.
Then you will be giving us, I'm sorry, we have, yes ma'am, you've been asking. Yeah.
I think, yeah, you
Go ahead.
then
I
you.
have a question. My ANC, well, my SMD
Okay.
is connected with school and the summer. Now, the SMD next to me has more residential parking, which means they literally come from out of their SMD to come on
Yes.
my side.
Mhm.
And my residents are getting ticketed behind this. And that's why I'm not understanding why it has to be limited to maybe just 5 blocks per
No,
se.
no. So the 5 blocks, no, it's not limited, the survey. So you can send us the most problematic blocks that we can survey. So it's, you know, if you know, and you don't have to send us,
Right? We can send in 10. We send
yeah,
at
you
least
can, a minimum of 5 blocks. You can send us
At least
10,
5.
you can send us 20, but
Evian's the one that has to do it, and I just think about it, he has to actually do it, so.
So you will receive
He's saying,
mine.
please just
send
buy.
us the most problematic. I think you have.
Just to make sure I'm understanding. What section is this conversation based on? I'm trying to find it.
So this conversation.
On the resident only, is that
It's 2437,
page
resident.
9 on
First,
the
page
printed?
9, 2437, residential permit parking, resident-only parking. That's page 9 of the proposed rulemaking.
And so where does it say that the whole agency would go to half that?
So that's page 10. The criteria is listed under 2437.2.
0.4.
Yeah, so it's D, C and D. So that's 85% occupancy and then 50% criteria.
And the one that Faye was talking about earlier on extending the hours is 2436, which is on page 8, which is modifying. The earlier ones are basically just our general procedures for getting into the RPP program and what the hours generally are.
So, go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
I've saved up a lot of questions. First of all, how do you determine what a residential block is if you have both commercial and residential on it, in determining what the 50% is? Is it always have to be 50%? I realize that may or may not be arbitrary. ANC2B has loads of traffic generators, Connecticut Avenue, Florida Avenue, 14th Street, 16th Street.
Mhm.
Are those positive or negative influences in your mind? Is visitor parking, like visitor parking permits, is that something that is taken into account when you do your surveys? Are those considered out of the ward? And then finally, are the results of those 3 surveys cumulative, or does each survey have to meet those specific criteria?
Okay, that's a whole lot of questions
Yes.
there.
I didn't
The
know if I was gonna
50%,
get another chance.
maybe we should not say 50%. It's one side of the street. So if one side of the street, it has to be RPP. We don't go in and put RPP on meters. You can have a block that has RPP and meters on it. But this is only if you have an RPP block, one side of the RPP will be, let's say it this way, will be left for visitors with the 2-hour exception, and one side will be only for residents. Saying 50%, I'm now hearing that that's being misunderstood.
Yeah, maybe we should change
Because we're
the
not
language.
saying if there's 100 parking spaces, 50 is all we're going to give you. It's really half of the street.
One side of the
One,
street.
thank you,
Yep.
one side of a street.
One of the block faces.
Right. It has to be, in terms of this, if there are non-RPP streets, now they won't be touched. It's not like we're going in and adding RPP where it's not, okay? So when we go in, and I should probably turn to Evian, because he's the one who actually does it, but I'll say what I think it is. Yes, it is 3 times, because they would each be, because if you come in at 10 o'clock in the morning, we might say, there's no problem here, but 10 o'clock at night or night, there might be a really serious problem. This is really to give us a sense of what's the dynamic that we're working with, and, you know, I mean, we need to have some criteria.
No, I like the idea of multiple surveys. My question is, does each survey in and of itself have to meet the criteria of 50% being from the zone,
Yeah.
or is it cumulative across the 3 surveys?
Like all the blocks, you mean, or the 3
No,
surveys?
so
Like
you
each
go out and do
time?
survey number 1, and you find that it meets the criteria. You go out and you do survey number 2, you find it does not meet the criteria, but it's really, really close. You do survey number 3, it meets the criteria, but cumulatively, all 3 surveys meet the criteria. Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Then that is, so it's a cumulative result across those surveys as you're proposing it.
That's
Yes.
proposed now.
Yes.
And that should
Suggest
give
that
us
we
an
clarify it
idea.
in here, because it's not at all clear.
Good point.
Okay.
I mean,
and
so
that-
I think that for
we're-
the,
we're-
for
we
the
were very
prior,
careful. Sorry.
for 2436 as well, for the resident, the RPP.
Sure. We're very careful to not include operations in the regulation. This is a general guideline. We're proposing a way of evaluating the blocks. We can get to that part when we develop an SOP and going out and doing the evaluation and seeing how the data will be given back.
But if you want a clear rule, I think adding the word cumulative will not really get into operational details.
Okay. Well, and that's, please, by the way, comments that you say here, don't count on us necessarily remembering to put it in. Please submit your written comments. I mean, we will try to remember to put them in, but it's really to have a real impact. It would be better if we get everything in writing, but
And
that's
the
a
other
very
question
good
was
idea.
about visitor parking and we do the survey.
What we're doing when we're doing the survey is really the license plates and the out of zone.
Mhm. So
So,
if
yes.
somebody is parked there from California but has a visitor parking permit, they'll be counted as out of zone.
Yes.
Yes.
And by the way, traffic generator does not mean you're next to a highway or a bigger avenue.
Definition of
It just
it?
means that if you're at Connecticut Avenue where there's lots of residents as opposed to Connecticut Avenue where there aren't, restaurants or businesses,
Yes.
those are more traffic generator. And what we were
Yes.
trying to get at is we're not talking necessarily, and trust me, this is why these things take so long, because we have all of these same debates and parsing, mincing of words in-house. But what I think had been envisioned before with traffic generator was a big, a convention center, a Nats stadium. And then we realized, well, the cumulative effect of living around DuPont Circle with all of those restaurants, there might not be one major traffic generator, but we were trying through these regs to get at the issue where there might be a cumulative impact of multiple.
Or
generators.
H Street, or
H
any
Street,
other.
any of those.
Right.
Assuming the rule goes into effect, what will be the status of current RPP areas? Will they be unchanged? Will they have to go through a recertification?
It will be unchanged.
Pardon?
Unchanged. It will be unchanged.
Yes, ma'am.
There is a block, I don't know the name of one, but there's a block I've heard from about problems with people parking there so they can catch the bus to get to the metro. But if those people had, because it's a RPP block, but if those residents have parking stickers and they're from elsewhere in Ward 4, it's not going to attack that problem.
It will not
This
address
is a very good question. That's what we call intra-ward commute, and it happens a lot in bigger wards, such as Ward 2 or Ward 6.
Any ward that has an
any
metro,
ward,
quite
right.
frankly.
But so isn't that going to be, isn't that when we speak of the metro, isn't that going to be maybe not, maybe a DuPont circle, I don't know how the wards connect. I know Ward 1 is close to Ward 2. But for Ward 4, that's going to be, people aren't going to be coming from Ward 2 to stop at the corner of 4th and Kennedy to get, it's all going to be Ward 4. So
That's
it's not going to really help them.
Well, and this is, you know, how can I put this? We would love, we being DDOT, would love to see smaller zones. And quite frankly, it's this group here that needs to push, because it's sort of been randomly discussed in the past, and it does not, it is not necessarily favorably looked upon by everybody within your ward and also on the city council.
But that doesn't mean that you cannot comment on it.
No, I mean, we would love that, I think.
So for the traffic generator, is you use the level of 500 people?
General, I mean.
General.
General.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to, publicly state, and Evian knows how I feel about it. You had mentioned the ballpark, in the same breath you mentioned the convention center. There has never been consideration for the area around the convention center. I represent the area directly to the east of it, and that is what we are seeking because of the thousands upon thousands of people that come to the convention center year-round. It is literally sometimes more than the ballpark.
So the definition of...
They're actually, I will tell you that the convention center was the reason why we initially started talking about traffic generators, was because of the